Hello YouTube, welcome back to the channel. So I gotta say, you guys really couldn't help yourselves, could you? I was trying to figure out what the best way was to make this video. And I've actually been kind of sitting back watching a lot of the reactions and responses and a lot of the things related to the YouTube Sports Card Hall of Fame, because we cannot have a year of YouTube Sports Card Hall of Fame without some controversy of some kind. And then at the same time, also kind of a reaction to Sports Card Dad's video reacting to the YouTube Sports Card Hall of Fame. So as I said, I've been kind of sitting back watching, and as you can probably make out from my face, I've been highly entertained. And not disappointed in the slightest, because you could pretty much predict some of this coming up in the way it was, and that'll kind of play into the point of this video that I'm going to make. So I want to talk to it in a couple of different ways. I really want to focus on the YouTube Sports Card Hall of Fame side of it first. Also give a little background to the best of my ability. It's not going to be perfect. A lot of it I'm going from memory, so forgive me if I don't hit on every detail, and feel free to correct me in the comments, I'm sure you will. But I want to give a little bit of perspective before I get into talking about the video itself, and also kind of the response to it, and a little bit of the back and forth, and a lot of elements of that. I have a little bit of an ability, because I've at least been around a little bit, and I can give a little bit of a perspective from a few different vantage points on this one. So hopefully it's useful, hopefully it's helpful, and you know, of course we can engage about it and talk about it in the comments. So let's get into that. So let me get into the main point first with the Hall of Fame itself. Now, to understand it, one of the key pieces for me is that you do at least need to have a little bit of an understanding of where it kind of came from. Now, again, I'm not privy to all the individual details, but I was at least around when the concept was being brought up and then brought out, and obviously I've been around for a couple of iterations of it. So Mike Baseball Collector went and proposed this idea. He's a big Hall of Fame freak about it. And obviously a lot of the elements of it play into that sensibility, and it has altered itself multiple times over time. I'm not going to hit you with all the different variants and whatever, but there's been a bunch of different and multiple controversies of it over the years. But a part of it that I think has always been a bit of a problem is, and this is a critique that I have about it, is that I've never felt like it really was the best way to accomplish what I think one category of it was supposed to accomplish. So let me kind of explain one thing about that, and then I'll also give kind of my background about it and my relationship to the whole idea and concept, because that's been kind of the source of a lot of fun that I've had with a lot of watching the way this is all played out. But the idea came about as this result of the way I would look at it and the way I would break it down if I was going to parse it out, is it's almost like an over-engineered, enhanced version of kind of the video response concept. And for those who aren't too familiar with it, you'll see a lot of it if you kind of poke around for video response, VR, and stuff like that to so-and-so, blah, blah, blah. And really what it comes down to is someone would create a bit of a video prompt and say like, and sometimes it would be a contest or whatever. There's a lot of variants of it. But, and again, you guys can fill in the comments if you got some better examples, but I'm just giving a general overview. But the idea here is to create a prompt that could then lead folks that are kind of following them to give their own videos where they talk about whatever the prompt is. So to give you an example of how the YouTube Sports Card Hall of Fame could have actually come about as a result of a prompt in an alternate universe where maybe this isn't an issue, it could have been a situation where somebody could have said, hey, I know there's a lot of channels out there that are a little under the radar. That'd be kind of interesting. You know, let's do a video response where we're all sharing maybe some channels that are maybe a little bit smaller that we think are pretty good, and then kind of talk about why they're pretty good and give them a little bit of a shout out. And in turn, then people could make videos about that, responding to it in video form, talking about, you know, I like this channel and I like this channel and they do this and this is, and basic description. Now, if that sounds oddly like the YouTube Sports Card Hall of Fame nomination process, that's because conceptually, really, that's basically what it is. Now, where I say it's over-engineered and created a little bit of its own problems inherently is, number one, the concept of the Hall of Fame. By calling it a Hall of Fame, you give almost like this incentive, this prize, even though there's no prize, there's no real Hall of Fame. To be clear, it's silly, and I'll get more into that in a second. But you create this concept of it where you can create the kind of this competitive element, and you can create a situation where some people could politic for this thing, and that has happened. Let's be fair about it. But it is overall then a popularity contest, because while there is the shout out element, and to be clear, that is a piece of what has actually occurred, and I can give some tangible examples. At the end of the day, the naming of this as a Hall of Fame then leads into a little bit of a kind of a pecking order kind of thing, where some people really take offense to not being voted for enough or not being voted for at all, and then suddenly it becomes this this contest of, hey, but my credentials are better than theirs, and how can they be in this thing, and blah blah blah. Again, this is a branding issue. Above all else, it is a branding issue. Just calling it a Hall of Fame kind of wrecks the thing, because in reality, if you're talking about, you know, infamy or fame in kind of this little mini genre of ours here, the sports cards section, is that, well, then you basically would have to go with the biggest channels. So like if you're going to do a YouTube Sports Card Hall of Fame and really treat it like a Hall of Fame, then you may as well make your inaugural class Sports Card Investor, Jab's Family, blah, 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 And a lot of these other channels would never apply because they're barely a blip on the radar screen. Even though some people really enjoy them and really enjoy watching them and may feel like they deserve more, credit for whatever it is they've done, it wouldn't count really because they're very small in the relative grand scheme of YouTube in general, which, by the way, all these channels are small in the grand scheme of YouTube. But even inside of this little mini niche, they're still really small. That doesn't mean there isn't good content there. That doesn't mean there's good quality. But the thing about good content is it is subjective. It is a little bit in the eye of the beholder. And I'll come back around to that idea, but just understand it concept-wise, it's a branding issue. Because as soon as you call it a Hall of Fame, people are thinking, okay, so criteria, what are you going to... And that was part of the controversy that came with the video that we're going to talk about here in a minute, is that it took the most surface level lack of understanding of even what the idea could have been or really hasn't fully succeeded in. But there are elements that work and other elements that kind of created their own problem, and that's its own thing. So my relationship to the whole thing has always been a little bit complicated for two reasons. First one is I think it's silly, and I made that abundantly clear numerous times on the live stream and on videos and a variety of different things and other live streams. Like I've had so much fun poking fun at this thing. Now, what that's led to though is in the last 2 years I participated in it, and maybe if you're not familiar with my channel, maybe your question would be like, so then why did you participate in the first place? If you think it's silly, it's stupid, whatever. And my answer to you is simply this. A couple of years ago, I decided to participate in it for the first time because a couple of people did kind of nominate the channel here and there. And while I had no illusions that it was ever going to end up anywhere near the top of the pecking order for that, because again, it's a popularity contest and my channel wasn't that big at the time, and I wasn't really participating in a lot of elements of it in the community-wise. And again, there's no one community, by the way. And I'll touch on that again in a minute, but just be clear. There's multiple communities, a lot of them, a lot of little small sub-pockets of these communities also. There can be some overlap, but it's not this cohesive whole. And that's a theme I've talked about a lot, but just understand that. So when you talk about community, you can be talking about these little pockets as well. But regardless, I really hadn't been around quite as much at that time. But some people were nice enough to say some nice words about the channel. I go, well, I think the least I can do is in kind, at least participate in it. So, I'll kind of play along, so to speak. Even if I'm not into the idea so much, I'll play along. And that's a key point here that'll play into the response to the video that I'm going to talk about. And that is that, to a certain degree, if it's something you don't understand or something you're not interested in or whatever, that doesn't mean it's good, it doesn't mean it's bad, but it just means that maybe at a certain point, sometimes it is good to just let people have their fun. Play along or don't play along, but let people have their fun with it. Don't take it too seriously. Because again, they took some of the response was also taken too seriously in addition to it. But it is silly. It's inherently nothing. It's one of those things where it does allow some people to sincerely try to recognize and give praise to channels that they enjoy. Well, a lot of those are not going to be the bigger channels, just naturally, because it's like, well, the bigger channel, why does it need more praise? It's already got subscriptions. It's already got, maybe they've got sponsors and they've got all these things that are already working in their favor. Do they need more praise? Is it not enough? the praise they've already gotten, really, just by being a larger channel? So it's one of those things where it's an opportunity for a lot of these smaller channels to also kind of celebrate each other to a certain degree. And overall, it's harmless. So that's kind of the point, is that the reason I participate in it, even though I think it's silly, is that it's harmless in the grand scheme. So I was like, no, I'll play along, sure. And it's one of those things where this time around, I also did the same thing. And I even played into making fun of my own post from the first time, because I did it. I took the same nominees, I scratched off one name, and then I talked to a version of my logo. I'm not taking this seriously because it doesn't warrant it. It doesn't require it. But then that leads us forward. So in that sense, even though I'm not even though I kind of operate a little bit on the fringe outside of even a lot of these communities, I'm at least around a little bit. I will collaborate on some videos with some folks. I'll come on some live streams. I'll invite people onto my live stream. So I like to think that at least I am a little bit participating in it, which allows me also to have a chance to talk to some of these folks and at least kind of understand, some of their perceptions about the way these things are. But I've also learned over time that a lot of them get very sensitive about people picking on them, and they will respond violently. And you can kind of see a taste of that if you pay attention to a lot of the responses. So it's one of those things I understand it. So I'm not surprised that the reaction was like that. It's a very emotional response, which is pretty much par for the course when it comes to a lot of these things, especially stuff like this. So like I said, first thought is that the branding was a big mistake at the beginning because it created this atmosphere that was always going to be very competitive but then also lead to hurt feelings and lead to little factionalism and a lot of these things that basically came about as a result of it. So that's the drama element that would always kick in right around it. So this year, it's just no exception. It's just coming from a different source. Now, let's get into the video in question. So, Sports Card Dad, formerly Personal Finance Dad, Dustin, created a video critiquing the YouTube Sports Card Hall of Fame. But the problem is, inside of the video, it basically betrayed him immediately. He had no idea what the hell he's talking about. In the sense he has no idea what it is. Because all he did was really just take the very surface level idea of the Hall of Fame concept, which by the way I get, since as a branding, it was a terrible branding. But then you follow it up with a bad video that means you don't know what the hell you're talking about. And so then at that point, also, in the same vein, why even talk about it at all? In reality, it was kind of a pushback against some people that had given some flack to his channel, which again should be expected. It is the internet. People hate stuff. But then the first reflective response then is to hit back at it, but by hitting back at it, you hit a broad brush. And we've had that, and we had that already in the past, where I had my fun doing the responses to kind of the interview that Dakota Sports Card Anonymous did with the Hoge, Chris Hoge, and the Card Ladder folks, talking about, you know, scholarly content and, you know, worthy content. What is good content? That was a fun series of videos. But the thing is, it was the same concept. He actually had a target in mind, even though he kind of denied he had a target in mind, but he did have a target in mind. But in order to try to hit the target, he kind of went wide and then ended up hitting a lot of targets. You know, a lot of friendly fire going on with that. Well, this video, in effect, kind of did the same thing. It kind of went into a friendly fire thing because, again, the YouTube Sports Card Hall of Fame thing is not really meant to be taken seriously. It should not be taken seriously. But I think if you're not directly involved in kind of the community in and of itself, and that doesn't mean embracing the whole community and be like, oh yeah, you know, I'm going to walk in. No, it just means at least be around a little bit. It'll make it easier for you then to understand what it is. And then if you do want to poke fun at it, and I do, and I enjoy it, and I will continue to do so. But you can do so from a perspective of at least they're around. At least they understand what it is, and they are poking fun at it. But they're kind of laughing with us rather than laughing at us. Because even at the same time that I poke fun at it, I have people that are inducted into the prestigious YouTube Sports Card Hall of Fame on my live stream. We chat about it. One of the guys, Andy, She Blind with Refractors, is one of Mike Baseball Collector, who founded the thing, one of his best friends. And he's on the live stream all the time. And we've joked about it, and I've had some fun with it. And even when Mike Baseball Collector did his nomination video, and I saw it, I don't really leave a lot of comments on a lot of videos. It's kind of a thing that I do. But I saw it, and I got a kick out of the way he described it when he nominated my channel, just the preamble that was required in order to do it.
All right, next up is maybe a surprising vote for some of you who know the story, but because I'm Carlos is getting a vote for me.
And even the conversation I did that came on the channel yesterday, or early this morning, I guess, with John, Wade Boggs fan. We were chatting for a couple of minutes before I actually hit record, and we were chatting about this a little bit as well, and he had nominated me as well, but he also kind of had to give a qualifier, so I was teasing him about that. Power of editing. The beer is not cold enough. Muzzle tough. Acceptable. Anyway, where was I? I was saying that when I was chatting with Wade Boggs fan and we were having a conversation before the recording, I kind of had some fun in kind of the way he did his nomination video, where he did a little bit of a preamble, and that's kind of the point. And that's kind of the point, though. When it comes to the folks in this specific, again, community inside of other communities, and this is a key piece that I'll touch on again one more time here at the end, is that there is at least an understanding that I have had my critiques of the whole Hall of Fame thing. Again, I like to poke fun at it and the silliness of it, but I'm still willing to participate. And that's kind of leading to what I said a little bit earlier, is that for me, it's like, to me, it's harmless. To me, it's like, let them have their fun. And I'm willing to, and I'm happy to come in and, you know, participate at least to that degree. I don't participate in everything. I mentioned the video responses. I don't do those. It's not that I think they're bad. I think they're good. And I don't watch most of them. I'll be completely honest with you. I watch stuff that interests me. So I'm very picky about that. I used to watch a lot more stuff to try to kind of get the vibe of the room, so to speak. But there's so many channels now, even at this point. Even as things have slowed down, there's still so many channels and not enough hours in the day that I'm not going to watch everything anymore. So now I'm a lot pickier with what I'm observing and what I'm watching. But I'm still happy that they're happy and that they're enjoying themselves. And it's one of those things where sometimes it's good to just let them enjoy the thing that they're doing. And again, it's mislabeled, misbranded, and I think that was a mistake. And unfortunately, they're still paying for it to this day. Where now the name and the title, you know, immediately elicits this idea of like, well, you know, we need to have these high standards for it. It's like, guys, it's It's basically a glorified video response where you shout out some channels you like. And yes, that means you're probably going to pick some of your friends because you enjoy and actually watch their channels. Shocking. That's pretty much to be expected if we're being completely honest. And now let me kind of talk about the idea of some of the bigger channels. And this is what I say, like, I have an interesting perspective on it, that I'm around the community. I don't really consider myself to be part of the community, but I guess I kind of am by default, I suppose, or at least the general community concept here, because I'm around. I'll participate in some of these things here and there because, again, it's fun for me, so I'm happy to do it. But I also know some of the players on the other side of this fence. So speaking about Sports Card Dad, I have mutual friends with Dustin, and I also participate in chats and Discord where Dustin's there, and I poke fun at him for some stuff as well. And it's one of those things where we don't have this close relationship because it's one of those things where I disagree with some of the ways that the channel is formatted. I disagree with some of it, and at this point, I'll just be clear and blunt about it. I've been on his channel. He's been on my channel for specific topics where I thought it made sense. And is there a time where it could happen again? Maybe, but it's just hard to say. But at the same time, it's that I don't enjoy the content. For me, it doesn't give me any information that I can use, so the information part is out, and I don't get entertained by it. So at this point, I'm like, okay, I have selective time, but that's me. That's a subjective choice on my part. But here's the deal. He's got almost 18,000 subscribers. So he's got plenty of people to watch the channel anyway. He doesn't need my view one way or the other. And he certainly doesn't care about my opinion. But regardless about whether my opinion is valued or not, I'm going to make the video anyway. But the thing is that when it comes to a channel like that, the most important metric at that point becomes to maintain the views, to maintain the watch time, and there is an engaged audience. There is an audience that likes it. And one of the key pieces when you're talking about these bigger channels, and that's why I think it would be good if a lot of folks really kind of soul searched a little bit more and actually did a little digging into it, and take a look for yourself. What makes some of these channels work? Well, sometimes it's a little bit of luck. It's sometimes a little bit of timing, but that's not everything. Sometimes there's more to it than that. Some of the channels have to make content that this bigger group of people are interested in. And it's one of the points I've made many times is that collector-centric content, and I mean really niche collector-centric content, has a lower ceiling than this very digestible, very light content that kind of expires pretty quickly. A lot of it is not timeless. It's kind of the moment, and it works for when it works. Doesn't mean there isn't some information that you can't refer back to, but a lot of it is very light. All you got to do is go to Sports Card Investor's YouTube channel. I know some of you like recoil at the thought of it, but why don't you, if you want to be honest about this and understand where a lot of this comes from, go to the channel and see what it is. Slick production values, like real quick cuts. Is it entertaining? I guess it depends on your definition of entertaining. Some people hate watch it, so they're getting some entertainment from it. But there are elements that are pretty common in some of these bigger ones. Pac-Man is a big channel. When I was talking to John, Wade Box fan, I mentioned Ziri, who's very particular in this niche. And I'll actually use Ziri as an example of kind of what I'm talking about with the other piece of the community part. So Ziri has this channel that he pretty much only opens hockey cards, boxes, and packs. So that's niche. You're talking about sports cards, and then you're talking about hockey, and then you're talking about opening packs of hockey. And that's basically all he does. And despite that, almost 55,000 subscribers. And then you go look at the view counts on the videos, and they're pretty good, even in relation to the subscriber count. It's actually pretty solid and pretty consistent. Like, it's up and down like everybody else, but it's pretty solid and pretty consistent. And you go look, and there's people commenting in the comment section. There's engagement in it, so like people are into it. He even has fan mail. Like, people send fan mail to Ziri. Now, here's the thing: if you go watch a lot of videos, you don't see Ziri's face. All you hear is a voice. You see his hands, I guess, when he's opened the packs. And he's got a weird, quirky editing style. And he's got all these things. My point is, it is a very, very specific niche that he occupies. But here's what's interesting. What you also don't see is you don't see Ziri collaborating with people, really. You don't see Ziri on other people's channels, really. At least not that I'm aware of. I'm sure if someone could let me know if there's an example of that, I'd love to see it or hear it. But in some ways, Ziri is not part of any community at all. And despite that, 55,000 subscribers, a very, very passionate fan base that enjoys it. So Ziri's community, in a sense, is the audience. And a lot of these bigger content creators, that is the community. The community is the audience. And maybe some collaborators that they do collaborations with. But that's still a very small pocket. So what happens is you get kind of in the silo that all you're getting is the echo chamber of whatever your audience is saying, good, bad, or indifferent, because you'll get both. You get hate and you get praise and a lot in between. But you got that. And then you got your other content creators you may be collabing with, who will probably be very sympathetic to your view. So the problem is you're getting this one little nuanced view, this tiny little sliver of a view, compared to the entire rest of even the YouTube sports card world. As tiny as it is, still has more dimensions than that. So you miss out on all this other stuff. The advantage that I have a little bit is I kind of operate inside of a couple of these different worlds. I chat with a couple of these different people, and you do get a little bit of perspective, but I do see that siloed thing out of it. And kind of bring it back to Dustin's video and the reaction to it. Like I said, the video was ill-advised because it was very clear that it wasn't very well researched, very well thought out. And then the response to it, of course, was very strong. And I'm not going to debate whether I think it was intentional or not. I have my opinions, and you can probably figure out what they are if you know much about my channel and my sensibilities. But let's say it's not. Let's say it's very innocent and naive. Fine. You have to expect the reaction you were going to get. And at the same time, then you also understand that that's an opportunity to kind of garner. In reality, his view count was great for it, at least until he unlisted the video. And also at the same time, the subscriptions went up. So I guess win-win-win, right? Whether it's intentional or not, I'll leave it to you. But it was a win-win-win.
Now, you want to see what a big-time rookie mistake is? Apparently, I'm new to this YouTube thing because I didn't check my camera to make sure I had enough battery left on it. So I switched over to the phone to finish this off. So we got two different video qualities, which I'm sure will look great. Great in editing. Anyway, the point that I'm making. When you operate inside of these silos and all you're seeing is that little sliver of it, then it's very difficult for you to get your head around the idea where some of these other channels would have, would have a different perspective on it and also a bit of a different understanding. So you can try to kind of put yourself in that shoe, but you're not really playing into it because at the same time, the channel, when Dustin's channel was created, it was created relatively recently. It's not like he had this long-standing history inside of the genre. He was able to blow up pretty quickly. It was the right time, right place. He provided the right kind of content, whether you like it or not, that appealed to a very specific segment of the audience. The thing is, that segment happens to be one of the bigger segments. And kind of this last point that I want to make about this whole idea is that then the internal rationalization response is, oh, they're just jealous because the channel's bigger. It's like, okay, fine. But you guys do realize that and I try to explain this to the best of my ability to try to get this through, and sometimes it's in one ear and out the other, is that the idea of a channel getting big, if you try to do the analysis, some of it is guesswork because you never know quite what's going to pick up on YouTube, what's going to pick up the algorithm. You can try to be entertaining, you can try to be informative, you can try to be both, and maybe that works, maybe that doesn't. The subject matter matters too. It also matters how you present it. So maybe the slicker production values, again, using the sports card investor thing, the slicker production values can be helpful. But you could take somebody that's giving the slick production values, that knows how to talk into a camera, that understands how to present things in a certain way, and all this is really good. But a lot of the collector content has, like I mentioned earlier, a very low ceiling. A lot of this digestible, like newsy, of the moment content has potentially a much higher ceiling because it'll hit the zeitgeist at the exact moment. So if you do it right, and you do the thumbnails in a certain way to get attention, and you do the clickbaity titles, and you do all these different things, then it'll work. And it's annoying, obviously, to people who make videos for a long time, but it's like, well, the thing is that the question becomes, really what it comes down to, is the video you're making informative or entertaining or both? It might be to you, and it might be to your friends, but to the mass populace, maybe not. That's kind of why I kind of said I like to poke fun. I respect and enjoy that a lot of folks talk about the OGs and everything, and I can respect what they're doing. And I watch some of those videos, and some of them I enjoy, and other ones don't interest me. They just don't hold up for me because the formatting of the style, and sometimes it takes 45 minutes to hit one point, and it's like, no, it doesn't work for me. But I don't have an issue with them making it that way. And not every channel is going to have this gigantic ceiling, and there's nothing they can do ever to hit those numbers and hit those levels. So the idea that it's like, oh, well, if you can't hit this thing, it's like you're not successful, you don't really know how to make YouTube work. It's this hustle, this grind. It's like, dude, you can make videos for years and no one cares. It's a matter of whether you catch the right audience, whether you present it in a way that resonates with enough people. And some of that is guesswork, and some of that is a formula, and it can work. But then the question also becomes, you as the individual, do you have enough time and enough energy for that? That's really the question you have to ask yourself. I feel like I've been modestly successful in that regard. Like, I've got a decent amount of subscribers. I do get people that watch it. I do get a chance to engage with some of them, and it's really great, and I enjoy that. I love the live stream, and I love doing all that stuff. But at the same time, I know for a fact that I don't optimize. I do a little bit of the newsy stuff, and it does well. And to be honest, the newsy stuff does better than a lot of the collector content, and that's why I've kind of always said that, is there is a difference in the ceilings in the two types. But at the same time, do I optimize it? I don't. There's a lot of things you could do with some of those little blurbs that you put inside of the different keywords. Do a little SEO stuff. The thumbnails with the silly faces and stuff, it does work. The clickbaity titles, it does work, whether you like it or not. So there's things you could do, and like also the type of content you do, the length of the content, the variety of the content. Like the conversation I had with Wade Boxfan. I enjoyed the conversation. I had some fun with it. The feedback I've gotten is really good, and it's done well for the channel in terms of views and stuff, which is great. I'm not spend all my time obsessing over it, but I do enjoy it. But if I was trying to maximize it, if I was trying to get the absolute most, do you think that a nearly 3-hour video is the ideal format? No, probably not. You could probably break it up into some chunks and probably would work a little better. The other thing, honestly, is putting in timestamps, which I was too lazy to do. That's another thing that probably would have helped. Fancier thumbnail probably would have helped with that as well. And of course, a very important thing that, again, would have helped is that I basically recorded it with John. I quickly cut a couple of things just to make it a little tighter, where there were a couple of things in there that I wanted to make sure was cleaned up. Uploaded it, got everything done, and then just literally made it go live in the middle of the night. So I'm sure that really helped those first couple of hours of views and told YouTube, man, this thing's on fire. At the end of the day, though, throughout the day, it's done well. And I didn't want to make a video necessarily to stomp on it, but I felt like this topic was worth talking about. But that's the point. I wasn't trying to squeeze every last view out of it. That doesn't mean I don't care about views, because if I literally didn't care about views, then I wouldn't make nearly as many videos as I do, because I do enjoy that aspect of it. And I like the newsy content. I like doing it. Not everybody likes doing it. Not everybody likes it. But I do enjoy doing it. But I'm not going to cover every single story. CSG solidified its pricing. I actually think that's pretty good. I like CSG. So for me, if it was like for a PC thing, $12 a card and ball, pretty good. Did I make a video about it? No. This is the first I'm mentioning of it. I'll probably talk about it on the live stream a little bit. But the thing is that I didn't feel like it warranted his own video for that. Maybe if I combined it with something else, it might be fun. And there was the thing with the Panini and the Babe Ruth card and all that. I haven't talked about it on the channel. Why? Because I don't care. So if I'm not interested in it, I'm not going to make a video about it and pretend that I am. So there's missed opportunities there. Like there's stuff that you could talk about that would fill in, and you'd have like a video every day or every other day, and you have even more videos on the channel, and that can help. Like I said, all those little things. But if I wanted to optimize, that's what I would have to do. And then that might help my channel grow a little bit. Some of it is luck. Some of it is right timing and everything. But there is still a bit of a ceiling unless you decide to pursue this really easily digestible content that fits right in. People are looking for a certain kind of thing. And the proof is in the pudding when you look at those views. And the proof is in the pudding when you look at those subscriber counts. And there is an element of that. If you can provide the right kind of content that caters to that audience, then you will be a bigger channel. So last kind of quick thoughts on this. I've already gone like the standard amount of time that people would expect, I think. But it isn't as simplistic as kind of the anger and reaction to it. I also wasn't surprised about the reaction to it and kind of the way it played out. But at the same time, there is a true aspect of a critique that could be given that I think the YouTube Sports Card Hall of Fame was poorly branded. And I think, and I don't know if that's going to change, and we'll see in the long run. I know that on the Instant Revolution podcast, the guys chatted about it a little bit the other day, and they'd be surprised if it was even around in 3, 4, 5 years. And I kind of agree with that. Maybe it would change in format. Maybe it would become that video response kind of thing. Because again, if it's about shoutouts, I don't think that's too controversial. But I think it's and shoutouts with parameters is also not too controversial. It can be like, hey, how about some smaller channels that maybe people I haven't heard of that maybe you think are under the radar and I think are worth watching. That would be a very easy parameter that gets rid of the big channels that probably don't need more promotion, but at the same time allows you to shout out some channels that maybe have been around for a while. Hey, there's some good stuff here that I think, in my opinion, is pretty good. And I think that's something that might be available as an possible option. But otherwise, it's like, as it currently stands, if they want to keep doing it the way they're doing, I'm fine with that, because let them have their fun. Let them do the way they want to do it. But I understood that it also created this avenue. And like I said, by Dustin making this video, he just created a lightning rod to allow, by the way, some of the anger is not even directed at him. Some of the anger is directed at the two people these two groups that already didn't kind of like each other. And it just gave him a new excuse to argue, which has been kind of fun to watch, but also not unexpected. So I think that's it for me. I think the only other thing I would add is kind of to the folks in the community who do that, who basically have responded very strongly to it. I understand, but at the same time, let's chill out. It isn't that serious. Now, I will say the passion is good. It is nice that there is that kind of strong sentiment for it, but it's also not going to change. There is still going to be that divide in terms of it, and unfortunately, it just re-emphasizes it and teaches you again that divide is there. And then this is from a guy who enjoys stoking the fire of holy war. So I'm a big fan of that, especially in the live stream. I like it. It's fun for me. But I think this is one of those ones where it's like, it's a really dumb hill to die on. Regardless of what side of it you're on, it's a really dumb hill to die on, especially it's not worth it. Those of us who have been around a little while can poke our fun at it because, again, I feel like we've earned the right to poke our fun at it. Because we do so in a tongue-in-cheek way, and we can kind of all laugh about it, as opposed to being overly contentious about it. There's plenty of other opportunities to be overly contentious, and we'll have more of them going forward. I can pretty much guarantee that. But anyway, that's it for me. More videos coming up on the channel. Live stream 8 p.m. Eastern time on Friday. I'm sure we'll talk about this, maybe. Maybe. And anything else that's coming up that we want to chat about, so we can definitely do that. Happy to get your opinion in the comments section. If you do want to stoke the fires of Holy War on this one, though, kind of chill out on it a little bit. I'm not taking it overly seriously. I figured I would give my piece because instead of me giving a gigantic preamble in the live stream, I'm just going to refer to the video as the preamble, and then we'll just get into the topic if we do end up talking about it with the panel and everything else. Anyway, that's it for me. Like if you like the video, subscribe to the channel. Thanks very much, and we'll catch you in the next one.